Hi, I'm Cassie, and in my kitchen today we're going to be making Hiyashi Chuka. The literal translation of Hiyashi Chuka is chilled Chinese food. And although it has its roots in a chilled version of Chinese lo mein, the dish has been so transformed that it is now considered a Japanese dish, or a Japanese Chinese dish. This is a type of cold noodle dish that's almost exclusively eaten in summer in Japan. There are loads of different versions of this, and it's often eaten in Japanese homes, but you can also find it very easily in Chinese restaurants. The version that we're going to be making today is a slightly spicy version. However, there are loads of different ways that you can make this, and you can make the sauce or soup into whatever flavour that you want. I've even seen some tomato soup based versions. Hiyashi Chuka is the perfect summer dish because it's cold and refreshing, but it's also filling. It has the satisfaction of ramen without the heat and bloat. So let's get to it. These are the ingredients that you'll need for our Hiyashi Chuka cold ramen. You might have some difficulty finding some of the ingredients for the sauce in particular, so I've put some product links in the description down below. But I've also put an alternative sauce recipe in the description too. And these are the fresh ingredients that you'll need. And here are two ingredients that I forgot to put in the original shot. Whoopsie doodle. So once you've got all the ingredients, and I've put some links down below if you need to buy them, then making the sauce is actually really easy because all we're going to do is mix it all up and then put it in the fridge. So first we're going to get 2 tablespoons of sugar. Next we're going to add 4 tablespoons of soy sauce. Now this is a type of kombu soy sauce, which I just happen to have, but you can use any type of soy sauce that you want. If you want it to be as close as possible to this recipe, then you can just add some kombu dashi into your recipe too. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and we're going to be using a lot of different spoons so that we don't contaminate everything. Okay, so next up is our nerigoma. Nerigoma is a type of sesame paste, and so if you don't have this, it's kind of like, it kind of smells like peanut butter, so you could almost use any kind of nut butter if you have it available, so maybe like cashew butter, or peanut butter might be a little bit sweet, but if you can find a slightly less sweetened version, you could even use that maybe. But this just gives it an extra nutty flavour, so you could also just use sesame oil or grind up some sesame seeds. And the reason that we don't use 2 tablespoons of this is because it is really quite rich, so you don't want to go crazy with that. Layu is a type of chili oil. It's a sort of Chinese chili oil, or it has roots in China anyway. And this version is something that I don't think I've seen abroad, which has garlic chips in it. And this one is just a sort of standard chili oil that you can see in a lot of different restaurants around. So now we're going to add a tablespoon of each of those. Okay, so a tablespoon of this crazy stuff. Wow. And a tablespoon of this one. And then we want 1.5 teaspoons of Doubanjiang. This is a brand new packet, so I just need to open it. And this is again a type of Chinese chili bean paste. I'll look it up and make sure to put a description somewhere. But this will add another layer of spice to it. Don't worry, this actually isn't too spicy when you get around to it, but it does have a bit of a kick. And I almost forgot that we need to put in the rice vinegar. So we're just going to do 2 tablespoons of that. And then we're just going to give it a stir. You can just use this as a topping, but I prefer mine to be a little bit saucy and to coat the noodles, so I also add some water here. So we've got 100 milliliters right now of liquid, and I've just added 50 milliliters of water, and then we're just going to give that a stir. And that should make it nice and easy to coat the noodles. So it is a kind of dauntingly red color, but it's okay. It's not actually as spicy as it looks. It's just got a bit of a kick. So now we're just going to beat one egg and fry it up into a thin egg crepe, I suppose. So now we're just going to put a thin layer onto the pan and we're just going to let it cook, and then after that we take it off to cool it and cut it up. Make sure that your pan has a lot of oil so that the egg doesn't get stuck. You don't have to use this type of tamagoyaki pan, but I find that the square shape makes it a lot easier to cut. So now we just need to cut everything up. We want everything to be in quite thin strips, so I'm going to start with the cucumber. So today I'm going to show you two ways. I'm going to show you one way that's very easy for beginners but ends up with a slightly thicker cut. I'm going to show you another way that is a bit more pro but it ends up with a very, very thin cut. So first we're just going to cut off the top and the bottom part. And then we're going to cut it into 3 sections. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then so the first easiest way that I'm going to show you is just by cutting it into sections and then cutting those into strips. So first we're just going to cut it in half. And then you can just use your hand like this and you can just put down one like that. Another one. And we're just cutting it into strips. And then you just chop like this. And then you kind of got these you've got like strips, but they're not super thin, they're just a sort of medium size. So you can use that version for the rest of them, or you can try out this other version. This one is a lot harder. So we're just going to put our knife in. Sorry, I already started a little bit. And then you're just going to pull this across. Easier to kind of do a little bit of a peeling motion than to try and do it all at once. And then you kind of end up with this sheet. If you're really skilled enough, then you can kind of just make it into one giant sheet, but I find that quite difficult and a little bit scary. Japanese people often don't use the seed part, and it is actually a lot harder to cut in this way. So you can either have it as a mid-cooking snack, or you can cut it up in the easier way that I showed you at the beginning. As you can see, there's a little bit of a thicker part here. I'm not a pro at doing this yet, but that kind of just takes practice, doesn't it? But anyway, so once you've got them like this, then once again, just pile them on top of each other and then just cut through them. It's easier to do this with a bit of a pushing motion or a pulling motion rather than just a chopping motion, because if you just chop, then you probably will get some of them a little bit stuck together. So these ones are a little bit thinner and a lot more flexible. Have you learned anything so far? Don't forget to give me a like or a comment or subscribe if you're having fun. Just show me some love. I want to just know that people are watching it and enjoying it. So our egg has kind of cooled down now, so we're going to cut that one up. So to do that, this is a little bit thick. As I said, I bubbled it up a little bit too much. And, well, actually, I made 2 mistakes with this, because you should really put it on a fairly low heat so that it's a nice yellow color, as opposed to just blasting it on a high heat, which makes it a kind of brown color. But you know what, I'm not wasting it, I'm just gonna use it anyway. This one's really easy to roll, and then we're just going to cut it into strips. And again, you want to use a sharp knife and do a little bit of a push as you go down. And then we're just going to cut up the tomato. You can do this into strips if you want, but today I'm going to do it into small wedges. I've just got one kind of beefsteak tomato. These have a very mild flavor, in comparison to a cherry tomato, for example. And I think that goes quite well with the sauce. Yeah, so when you get a tomato like this, then they're going to have this part here, which is very tough, and so you don't really want that. So you need to just give it a quick triangular cut. And then we're just going to cut it into a quarter. And again, that's the same for that bottom part. You kind of don't really want that either. I'm just gonna trim that off. And something that my dad always used to do is just to like cut little lines into the tomato first. If that helps you, then there you go. There's some nice little tomatoey lines for you. And just kind of do it at a bit of a diagonal. So we're gonna make some sort of wedgy slices. And there we go, just some nice sort of thick slices of tomato. And the last one is the easiest one. The last one is just this imitation crab. I don't know why Japan loves this imitation crab stuff, because also it has crab in it anyway, so it's not even vegetarian, which is kind of insane to me. But if you are a vegetarian and you're making this, then you can just omit this or put in another protein of your choice. If you're not vegetarian, you can use this in conjunction with ham or char siu, which is quite a normal topping for Hiyashi Chuka. So now we're just going to break up the crab, or the fake crab. And basically it'll just tear apart into these strips, so you don't need a knife for this. Okay, and so once you've sort of torn up the crab there, then just pop it on your plate with everything else. And the last step before putting everything together is to just make the noodles. And the ones that I'm using are called Tsukemen Senyo, which is actually for Tsukemen, which is a different type, but they're called Chuukamen, which means Chinese noodles. So I'm just going to take one little nest of noodles and put that right in. And then put on my timer for 4 minutes. Just keep an eye on these and give them an occasional stir just to make sure they're not all clumping together. But they should just be fine to just keep going like this. If it starts going like this, your heat is too high and you need to bring it down. And unlike with pasta, we are going to rinse this because we want to cool it down and stop it sticking together. So don't touch this because it is absolutely boiling and they really retain that heat really well. But just shake it around in the sieve until it's kind of cooled down. Then grab your sauce. If you leave it in the fridge, then you might find that it kind of gets a bit separated like this. So we're just going to give it a stir and then we're going to put it on top of our noodles. Perfect! Now let's plate it up. This is the perfect blend of spicy and refreshing, and it's a great substitute for the more wintry, hot and filling ramen. Did that inspire you to make some Hiyashi Chuka? Let me know in the comments if you've made your own, or if you think that your sauce is even better. But that's all for today. I'll see you next Sunday. Bye!